What up everyone, it's your boy Xmanny87 here, bringing you another top 10 video, and what I have for you today is my top 10 favorite comic Marvel Legends figures of 2020. Before I get into everything, if you could please leave a thumbs up, like rating on the video, it'll help show your support for my channel and I greatly appreciate it. Just a friendly reminder that if one of your favorite figures don't end up on my list or at a higher spot, whatever the case may be, I ask that you please do not take it personal. My list is my list, your list is your list. There is no wrong way in doing this, so I ask that you please respect everyone's lists in the comments and keep it civil. So grab your popcorn, soda, candy, toilet paper, or whatever, because this might be a long one. Now with that said, let's get it! Now to start off with my honorable mentions, we have Storm. I'm happy I get to complete my giant size X-Men team with this version. This is probably the best female Legends figure this year. We get lightning hands for the first time on a Storm figure and an angry alternate head, an expression I've always wanted for Storm. Along with that, a swappable flowing cape to capture that powerful expression, beautiful flowing hair. The chest area should have been slightly bigger and the disc elbow hinge is quite interesting, but I don't know if it works for me here. And the lightning effects is missing paint on the fingers where the flesh tone is. Other than that, new female body, tons of accessories, the glossy black paint and pinless legs makes this a fun and cool looking figure. And fun fact about me, Storm and Magneto are my favorite figures to photograph because of their power sets. Then we have Old Man Hawkeye. This figure alongside Storm were the first to be revealed, introducing a new feature to the Legends line with the pinless tech, which will be the evolution of Marvel Legends going forward. It looks phenomenal and it's making figures look so much smoother and more streamlined with the sculpting. Some great accessories here. We get this head with the glasses when he was blind in the Old Man Logan book, but on the modern body. We do get a modern head to go with it, which looks more like an Old Man Frank Castle head to me. The bow has that retractable look, and while it looks cool, I felt as it wasn't enough to capture several natural looking archer poses that I wanted. A bit tricky. No matter what, to capture the perfect arching pose, the bow needs a string. Still, greatly articulated. Next we have Cyborg SpiderMan. I love this one. One of my favorite vintage figures back in the day when I was a kid. The articulation is great. Despite not having drop down thighs like the retro Spider-Man, he's able to get a full split, something that the retro one doesn't do. If only that Cyborg arm had a metallic paint and had more range and an extra hand to go with it, as well as applying paint on the stitches for the mask and another tone onto the belt, then we might be talking about this being better than the retro one. White Queen, finally the classic White Queen I've always wanted. The diaphragm joint pleasantly surprised me with some good range. The busty chest goes with the character and the head sculpt is gorgeous. Only downside is that the skin tone came out kind of pinkish. Hoping this is not used again if they give us an astonishing X-Men version. Then we got the retro Dr. Doom. So the regular Doom I got the year prior and ended up being in my top 2019 list. So he won't be on my list this year, but this retro Doom is what I'm going to use to army build Doombots with this type of look you see here. That collar piece can probably be reused for Toad. The two tones of green works for me to differentiate it from the regular Doom and serve as goons. And finally Nimrod, because well, finally. With the House of X figures slated for 2021, he's going to be needed for that collection, and being paired up with Omega Sentinel, they are going to look so good together. As we get into my top 10, you're going to see lots of brand new, unique, innovative sculpts and articulation, some deluxe figures, some baths, some characters I'm personally attached to. You'll see one that I never reviewed before end up in my top 10 and never showed a pic of it. So you'll be seeing that for the first time here at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. Then lastly, ones that I've had the most fun with photographing, as majority of what I do and how I have fun with these figures is always based off and centered through photography. Again, these are all comic based figures, no movies or Gamerverse. I did a video with a combined list of that, so be sure to check that out. Now, let's get ready to count down! Starting things off and coming in at number 10, we have Sugarman. Remember in my review when I called this guy an instant holy grail? Yeah. Just like Venompool, I stand by what I said. I would have never thought about putting this guy in my top 10 list ever, as he's one of the lamest characters ever, but that all changed when I got this figure in hand this year. I gotta give credit where credit is due, even if I don't like the character. If it's good, it's good, and this guy looks epically gruesome. I still can't believe how this big meatball-headed scrotum was able to fit across the packaging in the AOA wave. Yes, the articulation is limited in some areas, but I mean, they played to the character's aesthetic here, which resulted in top-tier sculpting. All four arms are huge, and he should have had some hair painted on instead of it being sculpted, and also he's missing his tattoo, so minus some points on comic accuracy there. He does include a hammer that you can also also store onto the figure, but he's missing his axe. I know spreading this guy across packaging was a difficult task for the packaging team, so hopefully they can give us an axe for him later, maybe packed in with another figure. Love how some of his hands and his wicked tongue can hold some figures. That's some high fun factor there. Really hope we get another AOA wave, as I am a big AOA fan. Still a lame ass character, but what an epic figure. Coming in at number 9, we have Carnage, and this came as a surprise to me. I didn't think he would end up being in my top 10, but then looking back at it, I'm like, wow, I really had a lot of fun photographing this figure. And this is another character that I'm personally attached to because, again, I grew up in the 90s, reading 90s comics. Carnage was freaking awesome. Another all-new body sculpt from scratch, and it looks insane. The inner muscle body system makes the paint on the black tendrils pop on the red plastic and vice versa. Sure, he's missing some black paint on the tendril pieces that are sticking out, but looking at it from afar, it's passable. It could have done without the sculpted toes. I hate toes sculpted on male figures as they always come out looking weird. Much prefer them on female figures. But this should have had the regular shoe looking foot for a better classic Carnage representation. The articulation is superb and I feel nothing has to be changed as you get so much out of him, and those butterfly joints help so much. Something we didn't get with the previous Carnage figure. Maybe a double diaphragm joint like Retro Spidey and Movie Venom, but it probably would have broken up the sculpt, which is already perfectly executed, so less is more here. Actually, no, I think they could get away with it because there's really not sort of a design here, you know, it's just red and black crawly tendrils all over the place, so that is something I could see being done on a movie Carnage figure. The Absolute Carnage head I can do without. Sure, it's dope, but classic head on this one all day, as the Absolute Carnage had a way different and over-exaggerated physique. Swappable weapons for hands like what was offered with the Maverick Carnage would have been the go-to offer for this character. Still, this is not only one of the best Legends this year, but definitely the best Legends Carnage figure we ever got. Coming in at number 8, we have Strong Guy. This character has been on my wish list forever. Well worth the wait as it didn't let me down. I've said many times that the 90s X Factor was a dream team for me to complete in the Legends line, and we are so close that I can taste it in 2021. The proportions are in line with the character's physique as we get this all new sculpt, and gotta give props to Hasbro for nailing the likeness, as it must have been very challenging to make. I've seen some people have QC issues where one of the shoulders is drooping down and out of alignment, which is unfortunate for those, but luckily for me, I have no such issue. Articulation is good on this massive beast of a figure, but the figure is very top heavy, so make sure your balance game is on point with posing. Love the blue, yellow, and silver colors added with a small touch of red, which makes it very eye-catching. Team completions and anyone on my wish list plays a big factor in entering any of my top 10 lists. What a great year for BAFs, and Strong Guy here is one of the best of them. Coming in at number 7, we have Maverick. Another one that's been on my wish list for Legends going back to when the line began. I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this one, but I don't care. Honestly, the only hate I see for this figure are those who have no clue of who he is in the comics. Unfortunately, there are many folks who have that mentality where basically everything made should only cater to their taste and forget everyone else. For those that bash a figure because they have no idea who the characters are in the comics, then it's like I said before, read your comics, read your comics, read your comics. It's not hard to self-educate yourself. This character is so badass that he has Wolverine's respect, and if you have Wolverine's respect, which is something he rarely gives, then you know that is the utmost badassery, as it doesn't get more badass than Wolverine. If you don't know about Maverick, please watch my review of him as I will educate you about the character in my storytime segment. Another figure on another all-new sculpt from scratch, which looks phenomenal. There shouldn't be hate on that whatsoever. The colors look so good, I just wish the gold parts weren't that marble plastic. I would have preferred a metallic gold paint instead, but it still looks armory enough. He comes with 2 cool guns for accessories that you can store into the holster on his leg and the oxygen mask. I forgot to point out in my review that you could put the mask on him, so I'm taking the opportunity to show you how it looks on. He's got a great bulk to him and articulation to go along with it. Another one of those vintage 90s Toy Biz figures that I had as a kid, and I just thought he looked so freaking cool. I never did my ranking overview for the Strong Guy wave, but this is the best figure out of that wave. I know Book Nice 10 will agree with me on that 100%. Hell of a figure. Coming in at number 6, we have Kang the Conqueror. One of my favorite Marvel villains ever. My favorite Avengers villain next to Thanos. gets a much needed update and it doesn't disappoint. I just had this conversation the other day with Unparalleled Universe, as he said that this is one of Hasbro's best figures ever made, and I highly agree. The pinless tech looks so smooth on this guy that it looks import-like kind of smooth. I always like to point out the bad to highlight and appreciate the good parts, but I can't find one bad thing about this figure. He's flawless in my opinion. He has that Jack Kirby comic vibe going on with him. 100% all new sculpt that is aesthetically superior than his Toy Biz predecessor. The color contrast is gorgeous. His accessory selection is great, along with his articulation, which has great range all around, especially with that ball jointed waist rocker complementing the overlay piece on the torso. And this is a prime example when the sculpt and articulation are culminated in great finesse. He's friendly to pose around if you want to display him sitting on a throne. As you see here, I have him sitting on the DCUC Metron's Mobius chair. Hope we get a Ravana figure to accompany him in 2021, since it will be a villain heavy year, and I can't wait for his entry in the MCU. Especially when you look back at Thor Ragnarok, you had a lot of Jack Kirby inspiration, and the costumes, I just think they're gonna nail it with his look in the MCU. Definitely the best figure out of the Gamerverse Joe Fixit wave. Also, if you haven't watched the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes animated series, I highly recommend you do, as he was the most badass villain on the show in my opinion. Best Marvel Legends villain figure of 2020. Now for my mid-credit honorable mention, I'm giving it to Moon Knight. If you're wondering why he has a toilet paper roll in his hand, then I recommend you watch the Shartimus Prime Marvel Legends documentary Part 5 to get it. For those that did watch it, that pre-order scenario where I'm texting him and calling him about the Moon Knight pre-order really did happen. So it was funny to kick back and watch that reenactment. Onto the figure though, despite my gripes of the white plastic Hasbro's been using that gets dirty real quick, he still looks dope and has some nice highlighted pearlescent and metallic paint on some areas. The heads are nicely painted also. Both the heads are excellent to display back and forth. Tons of accessories with all hands and moon rings, and the correct bow staff makes him tons of fun. The cape is a little oversized for his body when standing him straight, which causes some imbalance as his cape passes his feet, but has a nice flowing look to it depending how you pose him on a flight stand. Definitely a custom wired cape is the way to go with this guy, as he'll be even way more fun to pose. Coming in at number 5, we have the retro classic Spider-Man. I'm pretty sure I might piss some people off here having him at this spot than higher because of my unpopular opinions. Might surprise some of you because Spider-Man is my favorite Marvel character and I would put him at number 1. But because of that, also, I have to be fair and call it down the middle. Because he's my favorite, I always hold Spider-Man figures to higher standards. The gap on the back of the neck and all the other huge gaps that appear when moving his head around is very unattractive. Sure, it has some benefits for certain posing, but it gets very ugly real quick. So that needs to be fixed next go around. The cobwebbing paint on the heads are so sloppy, it's another turnoff. There are no pinless joints on the year it was introduced, and plenty of figures featured it, so the red and blues on the arms are not smoothed out. Why not Spidey? We need Hasbro to treat Spidey with priority. He lacks accessories, so he needs to be a deluxe figure, with tons of web effects, hands, heads, and spider sense effect. Something newer, something fresh. How many of you have paid $80 to $100 or more on a high quality or import Spider-Man figure? I know some or most of you have. I have. So what Hasbro needs to realize here is that if they made a deluxe Spider-Man priced at the regular deluxe pricing of $30 to $35 and gave us everything we wanted, collectors would pay for it in a heartbeat, as they paid for their expensive import figures. I'm not ranting here, I'm being real. Just calling it down the middle. I have to point out the flaws so the good is recognized and appreciated. The goodness of it is the fantastic body mold. This buff looking physique of Spider-Man represents the John Romita Sr. art style so well. My favorite Spider-Man artist next to McFarlane. McFarlane Spider-Man was the first Spider-Man I was exposed to in the comics. That's why he's my favorite. So I'd like to see that style done one day with this premium articulation. And this premium articulation is spectacular. The classic colors are gorgeous, and once again, the sculpt of this body is stellar, and it should be the new standard body for agile characters in Legends going forward. This articulation enhances the posing fun factor experience by tenfold. So yeah, with all that said, thank you for hearing me out. This is not a low spot at all. Top 5 is a really respectable spot for this Spider-Man. There are things that bother me, but the good is still steps in the right direction to get the Spider-Man we deserve. In my opinion, for now, the best Marvel Legends Spider-Man to date. Coming in at number 4 is the armored Daredevil. This is my favorite look of Daredevil ever. Remember, I grew up reading 90s comics, huge personal attachment here. So all you classic purists, please don't shoot me, but this look is way better. Yes, I said it, and it makes more sense for a street level hero to wear some armor over plain spandex if they don't have superpowered strength and resiliency, and invincibility, and so on. It would make them look like a dumbass for not keeping themselves protected. This look was the first Daredevil toy I had as a kid. Funny, it was part of the regular superheroes vintage packaging and not the SpiderMan animated series. By the way, I forgot to mention when talking about Spider-Man in the number 5 spot, that 90s vintage Toy Biz Spider-Man animated series superposable Spider-Man figure was my favorite Spider-Man toy as a kid. So having these two in the same series really hits home. This to me is the best proportioned looking Marvel Legend. I mean, it really is. Everything is perfectly aligned from head to neck. You know how sometimes we can get some funky looking necks in this line. It's so smooth looking in all areas of the body as well. The chest, back, arms, and legs. Just everything is just perfect about this figure. Hasbro put a lot of effort with this entire brand new sculpt that I don't ever see them using again. I don't think it will be since it's so unique, but you can tell Hasbro loves their 90s costumes for this to be a one and done. Maybe a re-release in a 2-pack later on, who knows. Everything is sculpted from the red and silver armor bits to the non-armor. Some of the armor parts, like the shoulder pads that hinder the shoulders going up, I wish it was trimmed down a little and painted in metallic along with the wristbands, just like the metallic silver on his legs. The candy apple like red paint makes it pop gloriously. However, I am worried about it fading to pink over time. He articulates so well with only the shoulders and back movement having slight limitations. He comes with a great batch of accessories with the Eskrima sticks, interchangeable hands, tonfas, and a great Matt Murdock head. Seriously, this figure is better than the retro Spider-Man and beats out all other Daredevil Legends figures. Coming in at number 3, we have the Kill Crew Punisher. Hasbro really keeps striving to make the best versions of characters they've already made figures out of. This Punisher is another example. Making Punisher a deluxe was the right decision to make. Packed in with a jet black motorcycle and loads of accessories, guns, bats, machetes, battle damage head, etc. Well, it doesn't get better than that for Punisher. Love the Kill Crew helmet so much it made me go back and read that miniseries and display them in my Asgardian shelf like that. Good reuse of the Luke Cage Netflix body and adding all new sculpted arms with pinless tech along with some additional layers. Solid articulation and paint. Probably the only gripe is the sad looking skull. You're either going to get over it or it's going to keep bothering you. If they make a Punisher van later that you can store this bike inside of it, then that'll be pure gold. There's no denying that this figure is nothing but loads of fun and is hard to put down. One of the best offerings this year and worth every penny. You're gonna start seeing this trend of my top 3 being all deluxe. Coming in at number 2, we have Cosmic Ghost Rider. At first glance, this figure blew me away. The Cosmic Hell Cycle is definitely what sells this the most, but we get a great figure with it too. He has this flaming skull head inside of a Mr. Freeze looking dome that is removable, by the way, which makes the flames and head reflect nicely off each other. The newly sculpted upper torso is sick with tons of details and texture throughout. Then some nice cosmic sprinkles painted which are spreading in some areas. The newly sculpted arms look great and the cosmic ring bands on the forearms add more of that cosmic feel to it. On top of the arms you get these spiky red shoulder pads, again nice texture and are very pliable which doesn't hinder movement. The only thing I would change about this figure are the knees. These legs are from the Udon Taskmaster, so they kept the armored knees when in the comics the knees have that almost armored padded kind of look. I don't think they could have used that from that figure as it may have been too bulky for these legs anyway. Other than that, he's pretty comic accurate. The articulation is great here, which has to be since he has to fit nicely on the bike. The accessory selection is one of the best. A completely translucent flaming chain, 2 gun blasters, 2 flame effects that plug into the blasters, along with a flight stand effect and a blast off effect that goes into the exhaust pipe to the Cosmic Hell Cycle. Which brings me to the Cosmic Hell Cycle. This is their best vehicle design to date. Masterpiece level sculpting all around. Nice pedals to plant his feet flushly, and I know that's not even a word, but I'm just using it as an apply. And he has no problems gripping the steering handles. It even has storage to hold his 2 blasters, which is awesome. You got some cosmic rings painted in a nice pearlescent blue on the bike too, but the biggest eye catcher is the Cosmic Wheel Orb. This is absolutely phenomenal. It's broken up into 2 pieces, or technically 4 pieces because you have to plug in the white lightning effects in it. Being that the Cosmic Wheel is translucent, this gives me and other ACBA artists to make this really pop in our photography. It's mind-blowing insane when you see it lit up. You can even put a tiny LED light inside if you want to make it light up in your display. I think that's what Hasbro maybe had in mind here. I'll take it as is since I always love finding ways to be creative with my figures. That journey is the fun part for me. It balances so nicely on the stand and you can rock it around however you like to capture a dynamic pose. One of the best figures I own in my collection. This was my absolute favorite Marvel Legend all year until we get to my number one who took that crown away from him because it's something I've been wanting, and that is Broken Silk. She has a better broken neck feature than the queen of broken necks herself, Gwen Stacy, and she doesn't need Spider-Man to snap it for her, and I'm just kidding, this will forever be one of my most disappointed figures, so I might do a top 10 list on that. Cue that AC/DC War Machine song because coming in at numero uno is the deluxe War Machine. A classic War Machine was long overdue since the last one in the Toy Biz Galactus Build-A-Figure wave. Then they kept giving us some lackluster movie War Machines, some being good but mostly failed. We had to endure those we didn't want in order to get here where we should be. This is why movie figures can suck sometimes, because our beloved comic versions that we want get pushed aside. But hey, the timing is perfect as 2020 was a very deluxe heavy year and this was the best way to do it, and he's the best of them all. Being fully loaded as he should be, since he's a one-man army, comes with tons of unique blast effects for his turrets, Gatling gun, and multi-rocket missile cannons. Rockets that are removable from that too. Great foot thrusters and blast-off stand effects to simulate the flight even more by plugging them into each other. This definitely caters to display artists such as myself, and also to collectors who love to have fun posing their figures, and puts every single accessory to use each playthrough. This is the ultimate fun factor here. Also, we get a classic comic Rhodey head, as the last classic War Machine Rhodey face we got was from Toy Biz, which was based off of David Vonner. Only accessory I would have added is maybe an extra set of hands. Basically only the upper legs and hands are the same. Everything else is new. Wish the knees were pinless to keep it streamlined. The colors are good, but wish the arms and legs were painted in the metallic silver like his torso and helmet instead of this silver swirly plastic, which I can make the two easily blend in together through photography, but when I'm not doing that, in one still moment of looking at the two silver tones, it's like, whoa, it can be a little rough on the eyes. I'm counting on them to get this silver completely fixed when they do a War Machine for a retro-carded Iron Man series. The articulation is top-notch for this build. One great thing he has over 80 years classic Iron Man is the ball-jointed neck, which has a big chunk of range that pivots deeply, rocks around, up and down, you name it. You can complement it with any of your flight or action poses in mind. The way the shoulder pads go along with the arms without hindering anything, whether moving them up and all around, is great engineering. Then you have the Gatling gun with the rocket launchers on a ball joint that can shift up and down to manage how you want them positioned for vertical or horizontal flight poses. I had a ton of fun photographing this figure. In the comics, War Machine always looked cooler to me and had a better armor than Iron Man. Now in figure form, he looks cooler and is a better looking figure. This War Machine is everything and more for what we want in a Legends figure. He's crowned King of the Mountain here for being my number one favorite Marvel Legend of the year. Alright, so overall, Marvel Legends year in review, we had an abundance of great figures and the variety of comic character selections were great. Very few were blunders, but every line is going to have some blunders no matter what. Light on the MCU figures, but they made that up with other mediums with the Foxman films, Sony films, Gamerverse, and retro X-Men and Spider-Man animated series figures. The best lineup of BAFs, best lineup of deluxe figures. Budget was greatly used on tons of new scopes while also adding some new articulated areas. Lastly, the introductory of new pinless tech, which is going to play a major evolutionary impact to the line in the future. Happy that the Hasbro Marvel Legends team did a good job with distribution unlike their other lines. It was fairly easy to get these in stores and online for the most part. 2020 had some of my favorite offerings for Legends in the past 3 years or so. Looking forward to 2021, Year of the Villains and Year of the Sentinel. That was my top 10 Marvel Legends comic figures of 2020. This was a very difficult list to come up with, and these were the 10 that just stood out to me throughout the year, but I'm happy with all my choices. I stand firm with it. So now kicking it back to you guys, let me know your top 10 comic-based legends of 2020. So comment below, let me know, we'll chat about it. Please follow me on Instagram if you haven't already, link is in the description below. Hit the notification bell so you always know when my latest videos are up. Share and subscribe if you're new. Enjoy the pics at the end of the video. See you on the next video. Peace.